So my name is Jenna Donna, and I'm the Museum Education and Community Engagement Lead here at BIMA. We would like to begin with the words of Chief Seattle. Every part of this soil is sacred in the estimation of my people. Every hillside, every valley, every plain and grove has been hallowed by some sad or happy event in days long vanished. Let us now acknowledge that the land on which we gather is within the ancestral territory of the Suquamish, people of clear salt water, the Suquamish people. Expert fishermen, canoe builders, and basket weavers, the Suquamish live in harmony with the lands and waterways along Washington's central Salish Sea, as they have for thousands of years. Here, the Suquamish live and protect the land and waters of their ancestors for future generations, as promised by the Point Elliott Treaty of 1855. So, launched in 2015, the Creative Residency program at Bloedel Reserve connects the arts and nature in a stunning location. The program began with efforts of a small group of dedicated individuals at Bloedel, including Coram Bischoff, who is now BIMA's deputy director. Their vision centered on the simple premise that artists and innovative thinkers are vital contributors to our collective well-being, and that being immersed in nature is instrumental to creativity. Tonight we will hear from Amy King, Bloedel's Creative Residency Manager, and 3 creative residents. Catherine Alice Michaelis has been making artist books, prints, and broadsides for over 30 years. Her recent works, inspired by her creative residency at Bloedel in 2021, are printed with the natural shapes of wood rounds and slabs. As Michaelis came to know the flora and fauna of Bloedel, her engagement with the land led to a deep feeling of belonging. As conditioned messaging that separates humans from nature fell away, her wood prints came to life and began to document her transformation. Michaelis often works with vintage linens, natural dyes, and subversive stitching. Both caring for the home and stitching are roles relegated to women in many cultures, exploited by their mostly unpaid labor. Michaelis incorporates these textiles to bring visibility and value to the creative power women have always held. Michaelis has collaborated with scientists, writers, visual artists, and musicians. In 1999, she organized the invitational print portfolio Stack the Deck. 18 artists mark the cards for women's health and healing. Catherine has been collected by over 100 public institutions, and she was featured in the PBS series Craft in America in their Nature episode in 2017. Artist and educator Byron Au Yong creates events variety calls intimate and existential, personal and political all at once. Born to Chinese immigrants in Pittsburgh and raised in the Pacific Northwest, as a child, he found solace in drawing mazes and singing with trees. This evolved into a lifelong practice of composing immersive musical experiences in collaboration with various communities. For nearly 30 years, his playful elements and installations have invited audiences to embark on an extraordinary journey, from intimate chamber concerts to expansive, site-responsive performances. Honors include a Creative Capital Award and a Sundance Institute Time Warner Foundation Fellowship. Au Yong holds degrees in theater, dance, and music from NYU, UCLA, and the University of Washington, respectively. He's also an associate professor and director of arts leadership at Seattle University. Kimberly Trowbridge is a visual artist and educator who combines painting, sculpture, language, performance, and site-specific research. She has taught visual concepts in painting and drawing for nearly 20 years and is the director of the Modern Color Atelier, a multi-year painting program through Gage Academy of Art in Seattle. She received an MFA from the University of Washington and a BFA in painting from Indiana University. Her first solo museum show, Into the Garden, here at BIMA in 2021, was developed during her time as Creative Fellow at Bloedel Reserve from 2018 to 2020. It featured a selection of 42 paintings installed as a narrative walkthrough, revealing the themes and insights from her time in the fields, gardens, and forest of Bloedel. She's a 2-time Nettie Award finalist, a Gallery for Culture awardee for exhibition Framing Perception, and an Artist Trust GAP grant recipient. Trowbridge is represented by J. Reinhardt Gallery in Seattle. Thank you all for joining us tonight as we celebrate the powerful intersection of art and nature. I'm delighted to now introduce Amy King, Creative Residency Manager at Bloedel Reserve, who will guide us into tonight's presentations and moderate the conversation.
Hello out there. It's wonderful to be here and humbling to hear again what I already knew about all of you. It's just like, wow, where did you come from? This is phenomenal. We were just joking before this started that I'm calling them the tree people. All of these people talk to the trees. It's like you'll see them on the grounds, and they're just standing there in front of a tree talking. So anyway, I'm glad that you're all here, and I want to give deep thanks to BIMA for hosting this exhibition and to the people who've been with us on this journey. And I want to talk a little bit about the importance of what an immersive residency is, not just for the artists, but for all of us. So imagine, if you will, that you are one of these people, fortunate people, who get to come and stay for 3 weeks without a lot of outside distractions, and you get to be in the grounds and let nature speak to you and take the time to really listen and respond and be in conversation. You stay in this house, this wonderful house that was designed by Jim Cutler in these woods, and it's quiet. You can get up when you want. You can go to sleep when you want. You can go out and talk to the heron or the coyotes in the middle of the night, whatever you want to do while you're there. We have some people who let squirrels into the house. I'm not looking at any of these three. You start to lose the sense of proportion. It's macro and micro all at once. We're these tiny beings in this huge universe. Every plant is a universe. And we're these large beings compared to some of these other beings that we come across, the moss, the lichen, the dragonfly. I'm just giving you a minute to imagine yourself, again, still surrounded. The smells, the sounds, not just for a minute, but for days. Think of the openings that can create in your mind and in your creativity. Ideas that have been percolating under the surface can start to come up. They bubble up. They go in directions maybe you didn't know that your heart and your hands were wanting to sing, but that's what starts to happen. Some of the creativity speaks out to the rest of us and gives us a sense of place and time, of timelessness. This is a tintype by Megan Carson, who was in residence last year, using original 1850s cameras. Or I guess they're not called, are they called cameras? Anyway, so it's not exactly a photograph, it's a tintype. Being there, part of why it's important, it's not just important for the artist, it's also important for us. And these pictures are part of that giving back. We learn to see through the artist's eyes, we learn to experience nature as community members in ways we might not have thought of before. That's Pete Wire up there, and he composed a piece that was to be experienced by walking through it, through a meadow, and it happened to be across from Alison Stagora's installation, which is the Fibonacci curve and is western red cedar with the live edge bench there. It's still at the reserve. You can go sit in there and meditate and listen to the birds. They played off each other, and they influenced each other, and I just spoke with Peter last week, and he actually is doing a continuation of what started at Bloedel Reserve for the second time in New York City, with choirs coming together from different parts of the city and converging. And Alison Stagora went out and helped document it. So what's happening through these residencies, or some of these connections, is just magical. And it's really stunning to experience, as I say, through other artists' eyes, through the other people's eyes, what this brings up in them by being there. This is Christine Alice, who some of you know. She and her partner Kufnats have performed at the museum here a couple of times. I think her face kind of says it all there. She's just soaking it up, and she started singing back. The picture of the dragonfly earlier was a photo she took. She told me that when they were at the reserve, that was the first time in probably about 4 or 5 years that they had stayed in one place for 3 weeks. They tour all the time, and it was transformative. They worked around the clock, I think. They never stopped, but to them it was such a gift to be in one place and not having to move, not having to catch a train, not having to catch a plane, and really develop their work. And back to the community, we all know who this is, I think, those of us who have been at BIMA ever. This is Catherine Alice and Byron. Byron's actually talking to people there instead of trees, but he's teaching them how to talk to the trees. And Catherine is also talking to the trees and printing with that. I didn't get one of you talking to the trees, Kimberly, but you can tell about it. So it's about timelessness, it's about the seasons, it's about stillness, it's about perpetual motion, it's about community, it's about stillness, it's about change. A residency at the Reserve is really about tapping into being human and fully celebrating that. This aunt has a couple of questions that are directed towards the speakers that are coming up. The aunt was a photo taken by Peter Marting, who's a behavioral ecologist who studied ants during his time as a resident. And I also spoke with him yesterday. He's one of our jurors for next year, and he told me that this residency completely changed the trajectory of his work. So it's no small thing what's happening during the time there. So the aunt would like to ask, and you'll each come in turn, Catherine first, and then Byron, and then Kimberly, what was it like for you? What did it mean to spend 3 weeks or a month, some of you have come back as fellows, immersed with minimal outside demands? How does that affect you? How did that change you? What did it mean? And did you find yourself going in unexpected directions? So those are the two main questions for tonight. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Catherine, and thank you all for being here.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, BIMA, for this wonderful event and opportunity and exhibition time. And Bloedel, I'm so grateful for Bloedel for so many things, for existing, for having artists in residence, and for Amy, who's just so fabulous at running the program and making everyone feel comfortable and get to work, help us get to work. Let me see. Okay. So I'm going to read from my script so I stay on time. This is one of my favorite photos I took while at Bloedel. I was first there for Creative Residency in May of 2021. The rhodies were beginning to bloom. There's a part of the trail where I came around and saw Bloedel House through all this beauty, and I took a snapshot. It reminded me of a fairy tale scene where the castle looks close, but is actually far away. The way there is arduous, challenging your every step. I was sure this was the castle where the fairy queen lived, and it was my job to get there. Thank goodness the life of an artist, in my experience anyway, is full of challenges and adventures, so I knew just what to do. And that was to throw my entire plan out the door. Because there's just something that happens when you get there and you're inspired, and you don't take that into account necessarily when you're planning, that the space is going to speak back to you and give you inspiration. So to answer Amy's question about going deeper or in different directions than I had planned, the answer is yes, emphatically to both. I think going deeper is one of the best gifts of a residency, especially when you're by yourself immersed in nature. I've learned it's better for me anyway. As soon as I unpacked, I wanted to print from wood rounds, an idea that had been simmering on the back of my mind for over a year. Though I have printed from a lot of different materials, I had never printed from wood before. So I gathered a bunch of wood, mini cans of ink, some brayers, paper, and cloth. I made a lot of phone calls to get these things to me. There are always helpers on the ferry trail. You just have to ask. This print on the left is one of the earliest prints made at my creative residency. It was printed on paper. I started just printing rounds, and probably a few days later, added the slab that joined the two rounds. I could see a lot of potential here in these pieces of wood immediately when I saw how this print composed a story. So I just kept printing randomly, trying out shapes and colors. It was pure play. And I want to say it's the first time I ever really felt like I was playing in my studio or in a studio setting. Later, when I began printing on cloth, I tried to replicate this print I made on paper. The angles just weren't quite exact, the orientation felt different, and the whole print transformed for me. Early on in the printing process, I identified myself as this animal shape with the legs and head. And in this print, I recognized a feeling of pressure, both cultural and self-imposed, especially in the image on the right. That's one of the ways it changed for me. When I saw that, I felt I'd brought the outside world with me into my residency, and it was not a happy feeling. But Bloedel is beautiful, and every day I spent time walking all the trails and meadows, multiple times. And then when Bloedel was open, I came in to print. I was printing, but I was playing. I had no outcome in mind. I was just learning what the materials wanted to do. And day by day, the environment was helping me to shed my judgments of what I should be feeling, thinking, and doing. Here you can see some of the prints that had evolved on pieces of cloth over the 3 weeks. I added some stitching and applique to them and incorporated a few linoleum cuts from other projects. Once I was home after the residency and sifting through all the pieces, I found a narrative that could become a scroll. What surprised me is that the narrative was the story of my time at Bloedel. My time there was just so incredibly profound. And unbeknownst to me at the time, everything that was being experienced by me was being expressed in the prints I was making. It was fairy magic, I'm convinced. The first print after the cover piece, which is up here on the left, is a print of me falling through the portal of the outside world and into this other, more animal world or fairyland. There's always a portal, right? Even if it's your own mind, you have to fall out of. So that's this one right here. The second print illustrates that experience of seeing out the corners of your eyes and wondering, is that for real? That feeling of being watched. It was amazing. Being in nature was not new to me then. I've always loved nature, backpacked in the mountains, camped, gardened in my yard, made artist books on different nature themes, and studied the way plants grow and how we're all interdependent. But something different was happening here. The flowers looked back at me more sincerely, as if trying to tell me something. The trees taught me to look at things differently, and the water reflected back a less complicated version of myself. One day on the trails, I recognized myself as an animal, just like all the other animals on Bloedel. I never felt more free. I had shed the outside world, and I felt incredibly happy. I was deeply aware of the plants and animals, and I was sure they were aware of me. This was also showing up in the prints. The middle print is now me on all fours running. I am gathering energy directly from the heart of the earth and breathing it out. It has a lot of stitches in it. Most often the stitches help to just define some of the edges of the print when they didn't print really strongly or darkly or have good edges. But here I was inspired to add more to tell a really important part of the story of my time. The print on the right was representative, though by accident, of one of my best days at Bloedel. Amy's heard this story multiple times. I got up super early to watch the sunrise from the bluff below Bloedel House. I was there in May, and this was the end of May, so I was really getting up early. Just as the sun started to rise, I realized I wanted to feel the sunrise throughout Bloedel. From the eastern edge to the western edge, there was something special about it. So I started running through the reserve. down from the bluff up past the house, and I looked back just at the right moment to stop and take this photo. Just before the pollinator meadow at the bridge, I surprised an otter, and it ran ahead of me to the pond. This might have been the fairy queen hiding in the body of an otter. I'm not sure, but it felt like that. There I stood looking at this magnificent place and the golds and greens of some magical spell. The otter, you can see at the bottom, kept looking up, like going under the water, and kept looking up. Is she still there? Is she still there? Like 4 or 5 times. I was expecting to be granted 3 wishes, but really my wishes were already coming true. To make the book, I connected the prints by framing them on this blue cotton. The blue cotton background was also printed with wood rounds in white. Under them are dark, shadowy creatures, the natural shapes of the madrona rounds I was using for those, hiding or not yet ready to emerge. Again, this print on blue cloth began on paper, blue paper, with the image you see on the left. I did not realize at first this print echoed the gravel garden or the water drops falling on the ponds. My entire experience outside of Bloedel fed me every day and came out in whatever I was printing. It's just the way that of play, I think, and what happened by just surrendering to the whole experience. I felt in deep communion with the place. This led to the transformation of the final image of Flying Cow. So this is a 5.5 foot long book, and it's on display right now at Bloedel. But of course, my flying cow, the wings are leaves, as I couldn't have transformed so completely without the rest of the natural world lifting me up. And those wings came from a vintage tablecloth. So in some of my work, you don't see a lot of the vintage tablecloths, but these are also old sheets, old cotton sheets, which print really beautifully. And I dyed a lot of them in blueberries and tea and avocado pits. Like whatever I had in the kitchen where I was staying at the house, I would try to take that bright white off of those sheets. I could not have transformed my studio life without this residency, and all this work attests to that. Because of it, I have discovered a new aspect of my queer little self, and I love it. Here I am, myself, I think, the fairy queen. And you can see this print in the hallway on the ramp outside behind glass. So, thank you so much. And now, Byron.
Thanks, Catherine. Yes to play. Play at Bloedel. Yes to throwing out plans. Hello, everyone. Thanks, BIMA. Hello, Jenna and Cole and Greg and the rest of the team and Bloedel, Amy. Oh my goodness. It's really great to be back because as a creative resident, you're the only one there. You're there with someone else who lives on the ground. And so when the public leaves, it's basically the woodland creatures who come out and you. And so, when Catherine talks about running around sunset and so forth, yes, that's what happens. And so it's really great to be able to come into these types of spaces to be with other artists, right? Because we have all individually experienced the magic of Bloedel. Of the reserve, and so to be able to share and hear from other people what our practices, how they've deepened is really great. So thank you for that. So yeah, I was there July through August of 2022. You remember there was a global pandemic happening. We were coming out of that. My father had passed away in 2021. I took care of him for 5 months during his passing. And as a composer, as someone who creates musical events, I was like, I probably should write a requiem, right? And as a composer, you get one. Otherwise, it's super creepy, right? So I thought, well, what what can I contribute to the Requiem? Because over 2,000 musical requiems have been written. So you may have heard of Mozart's Requiem, or Fauré's Requiem, or Verdi's Requiem. I was like, what do I have to offer? My dad was born to refugees in the mountains in October of 1941. And during the 5 months I took care of him, he would not step foot outside. And so I thought, well, what's going on? So I would go outside and find pine cones and so forth. And keep in mind, I was living in San Francisco, and he was in the Pacific Northwest. And I would find things to bring to him, and that was the way we connected. But I hadn't, there were still things I needed to figure out. And so the residency at the Reserve was really foundational for me. I entered thinking I was writing a work called Forest Requiem, because I thought, okay, what I have to contribute is, during our climate emergency, maybe every 21st century Requiem is about the environment. As the 20th century, there are many war requiems. Within a few days, I was like, no, it's actually not Forest Requiem. Does anyone know the text, the Latin text of the Requiem? One of the things that you may sing in it is Requiem Aeternam, rest eternal. And I was like, you know what? It's actually Forest Aeternam, right? The trees are eternal. And I was reminded of this coming from San Francisco, but being raised in the Pacific Northwest, of nursing logs. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like, yes, you may have death, but the death is actually a source of life. And so I thought, let's rename this to Forest Eternal, because the trees have been here before us, and they will continue after us. I'd like to, so there we go, Requiem Aeternam. I also folded a lot of paper, and I think this might be displayed somewhere. Yeah, awesome, cool. Because folding paper is part of my Chinese heritage. We fold paper for 100 days and then burn it, and that goes to the ancestors. I'm folding paper to use as musical scores. I'm still not quite sure how this works out, but I basically folded paper that my father touched. So that's what that is. Okay, so we are going to do some of the practice. Amy said that I talk to trees. I actually listen and sing with trees. In order to listen to trees, how many people know how trees communicate? Through their roots. Yes, right? Through the mycelium, through the roots. So we must listen with trees through our feet. So please, I invite you to stand if you're able. Feet shoulder width apart. Bend your knees slightly. And thanks for those of you in between rows. And I'd like you to inhale from the earth. Hold. And exhale back to the earth. Oh my gosh, we're all together. Are you all from Bainbridge Island? Do you already do this practice? This is a practice I refined and deepened, right? And I'm so glad you're all in it. And we can imagine before this wonderful building was built that there are roots, right? So we're inhaling from the earth. Hold. And back to the earth. And one more from the earth and back. And back. And now let's exhale to the sky, inhale from the earth. Exhale to the sky. And we can imagine trees, right? And inhale from the earth. And really luxuriate in this stretch. And inhale from the earth. Exhale to the sky. Now inhale from the earth. Exhale to your center. And you can inhale from your center. Exhale. And I invite you to open your eyes and acknowledge other people in the room. right? And keep breathing. I think because Amy's been at Bloedel for over 5 years, I was like commenting when we met, I'm like, Amy, you're taller. And I think it's because she's hanging out with the trees and they're secretly communicating with her. So yeah, so this is one of the workshops that I engaged with. And you may notice, so San Francisco, oh, please be seated. San Francisco is a city that's built on sand dunes and shipwrecks. Right, and so it was, now I moved back to Seattle in 2023, and so if you've been to Bloedel, you know this is between the Japanese gardens and entering into the Moss area. And was anyone at any of my workshops by any chance? Oh, wonderful. Okay, there you go. So you know how we kind of guided through different areas. My understanding is there are 7 ecological areas at Bloedel, which is kind of amazing to think about. And so as you, if you have a chance, when you have a chance to go back, please notice that. So yeah, what I'm going to do is share a video of some sketches next. So you'll get to see the reserve. And the audio for the sketches, it's all vocal. So I layer my voice 9 times. And there's some of these workshop participants. You may also know there's a large reflection pool. And one of the things that you will hear at the reserve also at certain times is howling, right? There are coyotes that howl. And so you'll hear workshop participants howling as part of the requiem in this sketch. What else do you want to notice? Well, we'll notice what you notice as we go into this sketch here. So there's a 11-minute sketch on YouTube if you wanted to check out more of that. So part of this is figuring out how to emerge from the emergency. And I have 2 ideas. One idea is to locate the eternal, the eternum. And the second one, which definitely happens when you're there, is entering tree time. Right? So I am still working on this requiem. So I've definitely entered tree time, but I will be back at the reserve in October where I'm going to finish the writing out of the score to then send to presenters. And as I mentioned, there was a lot of paper folding that happened. I continue to fold paper. I still haven't figured out how these are 3-dimensional musical scores, but maybe I will in the play that happens there. And yeah. The trees are there. So that's a reflection of that. So there you go. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm totally honored to be here and in company with you, Catherine and Byron. And thank you, Amy. Thank you, BIMA. Thank you, Bloedel. My experience as a creative resident and fellow at Bloedel has been definitely one of the most meaningful and deep, rich experiences of my life as an artist. My time at Bloedel during multiple visits was spent really out on the field every day, all day, and just letting nature speak to me. Some things that you said, Catherine, about play and about feeling witnessed by nature really resonate with me. Being out there and losing the boundary between self and nature was one of the most profound things that happened for me. The real stripping down of that boundary, feeling seen in a different way, to an extent where to me it felt like I was experiencing an erotics of perception, that incredible titillation of actually being seen as another creature, as another being in this world, breathing and being sensed. And so through oil painting on the field for me is one of the most intimate ways that I can connect with my surroundings. I am a deep lover of color and shape. And so letting the kind of sensuality of nature speak to me to guide my color choices, my brush work, is a really spiritual practice for me. It is, in a sense, my church where I go to learn something greater than the self. And so a lot of the work that I did out on the field, sketching, doing oil studies, day after day, getting to know the different rhythms and forms, thinking about not just the individual structures of plants and leaves, but also how they create a choreography within the rectangle that I was working in. And so in a sense, creating a kind of colored score. I do think of it in terms of musical structures and rhythms. And so a lot of these works, which I consider my primary documents because they're done on the field, I never touch them again in the studio. So to me, they become kind of documents that help me then create larger studio paintings that are more invented or perhaps more conceptual in a sense. But these primary documents are really important to me. And so this would be an example of one of the larger studio paintings, which comes out of the experience of having worked on the field and sensed the different forms, the colors, the light. And so this is a recording then of this moment of the late afternoon light coming through the Camellia Walk, which was one of my very favorite places in the garden. And so to me, this connects me to my deep love of art history, in particular, the theme of the Annunciation and how all the kind of old Renaissance artists did a different rendition of that. And for me, that happens through the light moving through the forest in this way and this incredible gratitude to be in the forest and witnessing this particular moment, this particular camellia being illuminated before my eyes, and how totally magical that is, undeniably magical. And so back in the studio in the evenings, I was working a lot from different video footage that I was doing out in the gardens where I started to incorporate my own body. And so it's not just about viewing of the nature, but it is about the human story with nature, which to me is a big and important part of about what Bloedel was for me. This is not wilderness. This is cultivated relationship between nature and humanity. And that was really moving to me, being a cultivator, being a caretaker, but then also for me experiencing my own body in the space, again, being able to be a creature in nature, and ended up developing these large panels in my studio of this kind of form, almost like a Greco-Roman statue in a way, again, speaking to art history, but speaking also to my particular experience in my own body, being touched by, moved by, and ultimately transformed by nature. And this one, again, Byron, I nod to you because this one I think of as a movement through time, a kind of musical score of the body's movement through nature. Another one from this series, and these are 8 feet wide, and these were all upstairs here at the museum as the culmination of my fellowship with Bloedel. And so back on the field, fell in love with the moss garden and loved the skunk cabbage. The astringent, pungent scent of it is like kind of gross, but mostly amazing. And just loved the lusciousness of the leaves, the transparency, the way the light would come through and illuminate and create a warmer green underneath, and then a cooler, more opaque light on top. So this gorgeous temperature structure that this beautiful bouquet of leaves created. And so then back in the studio, still out on the field, really responding to the beautiful western cedars growing out of this moss. Another one here. And then placing my body again back into that story. One of my favorite themes in art history is the nymph and the satyrs. And so this is my nymph with the skunk cabbage. Finally, I get to be who I am. And the other third main garden that I just fell in love with was also the reflecting pond. And this is in-process painting, which I call the double cedar. And so the work that I did on the field around the reflecting pond became a really powerful poetic metaphor for me. The idea of the above and the below, of the mundane and the sacred, how as an artist we are in some ways creating mirrors for our community, but the way in this instance that nature is creating the mirror of the self. Catherine, again, you spoke about that a lot, that all the work that you made was perfectly exactly telling you about your experience there. And so that kind of surrender of letting nature be a mirror of the self. And so also through this idea of the above and the below, the conscious and the subconscious, the sacred and the mundane, all of these themes coming out and working from this reflecting pond. Also the rectangle, talking about the rectangle and the boundary of a painted work, and how much magic and the portal that happens through that. And then finally, this character that entered through my own video work and photographs I was doing around the pond, that the character of Persephone became really important to me. So of course, in Greek mythology, Persephone, gets sort of abducted and becomes part of the underworld. And she is this beautiful metaphor of the artist, of someone who is down there half the time, but also bringing the lessons and the gorgeous darkness of that up into the light, into the community, onto earth, bringing revelations and ideas, but also always having that kind of 1 foot in to internal insight and 1 foot out of resplendent blossoming and connecting with the community. And so the symbol of Persephone in my studio work became a real pillar metaphorically for the exhibition that I put together based off of my experience. The opportunity of spending that much time in nature. And Amy, I loved your presentation of getting us to slow down and really imagine that again, that the rhythms and the conversations that happen within the self, all the doubts and anxieties start to run their course, and finally you can just hear the buzzing of the bee or sense the rustling of the leaves in the wind. And what an incredible gift that is. And I wish everyone could have it. As a visual artist, as one who loves color and light and form, it has changed me biologically. I feel it in my body. Thank you so much. Honored to be here.
I'm really curious from my perspective and the perspective of the preserve and the people who want this program to keep going, about the community engagement piece. And I know for me, going to your events, it changes me, but I'm curious as to how you feel about working on these community engagement events and how they play into what you do. And Byron, I know you spoke to that quite a bit during yours already, so have at it.
Well, I want to start answering that by saying I saw Kimberly's exhibit here at BIMA, your fellowship exhibit, and that in a way opened Bloedel to me. I think I had been there maybe once before that, maybe twice, I can't remember. But seeing that exhibition made me see Bloedel. I'm going to cry. The Persephone paintings, particularly, just gave me this sense of the transformative power of being in that space, and the way that it opened Kimberly, and the way that it just opens you to be there, that it's available to you, that space. And so her public event of the museum show prepared me for the potential of being there as a creative resident. So that in itself was just super profound. And then one of the things that I did was this event, and I want to say it was months and months later, where I let the public, we arranged to have the public come through and print from wood rounds at the sheep sheds. And I had helpers, and we had all these pieces of wood and paper, and people could ink and print. And it just made people happy. And they weren't super fussy. And, you know, because when it's your own work that you're making, you just want everything to be just right. But people just love the experience of printing from wood. And I still remember when Byron came through, which I think was the third or fourth time, but that we did an event. But also the horticultural crew at Bloedel have all printed wood rounds on their gear and everything. And it was like the prints just caught people's excitement, attention, imagination, and everyone wanted to print, and they wanted to wear it, and they wanted to keep it. And I think that's because we all connect to the trees, and we're just looking for different ways to experience that and hold on to it and keep it. And these prints are something that are not hard to make, and everyone can have and take home. And so they're just super accessible. And so I had never done these before my residency, and to be able to share them with other people just so easily and readily was super exciting. So we just keep doing it, which has been really fun.
That is awesome, and thank you also for those incredibly generous comments about my show. I mean, that's the dream response, and not a big leap for me as an artist in terms of, for you too, Byron, making that connection between my art practice and my pedagogical practice. And so as an educator, my relationship to wanting to connect with my audience and my viewers is deeply entwined with my vision as an artist. And so when I did a couple workshops at Bloedel of teaching people through collage specifically how to translate what you're seeing into some simple statements of shape and color, and to arrange those next to each other, to begin this conversation with the self of moving from this overwhelming scene of infinity in front of you to a few poetic statements of colored shapes. And so the very way that I make a painting is to invite the viewer into that space of not just being overwhelmed by the illusion of something, but being very aware that, oh, this is just colored mud on a surface arranged in a surface way. And so all of a sudden then it becomes more relatable, more like, ooh, I could do that. And so I love the community engagement aspect of it. That's absolutely integral to my practice as an artist.
I have to add just two things here quickly. I think the first time that Catherine did her public come and print from a tree round, I think 300 people went through. It was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. And I never walk the Camellia Trail without thinking of you. That's all. So we're going to open it up to questions. If anybody has any questions or comments, including all of you, you can ask each other too.
Hello, thank you. That was so interesting, just amazing. I'm beyond inspired. Did you do the community engagement during your 3-week stay, or was it afterwards, or both? All of you.
Both. We always have Drazone. It's one of the excuses to be invited back.
We never let them
Yes.
go.
Yeah, during the stay and then also during the amazing event where many of the past residents came together and did different workshops that we could attend each other's and was open to the public. Phenomenal. Wow. Thank you for that.
How many years have you been having the residency? Oh, this is the 10-year. Yeah.
I remember when I first came to Bloedel years ago. It was, I think, 3 or 4 years before the Creative Residency was established, and immediately I was like, they need to have a creative residency here, and then found out there was one a few years later, immediately applied. I'm so grateful I got in. I feel like if I applied now, I wouldn't get in. It's very competitive now, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
great.
Byron and I were talking about that. Like, would we even make the cut now at this point?
I don't think I would. It's awesomely competitive.
Wait a minute, you guys are all jurors now, so
Exactly, so we know how hard it is.
To each, it was a wonderful presentation by you all. Thank you so much. Just a question: do you think the coming and visiting in a different season would have an effect? And if you could address how that might change your work or be reflected in your work.
Well, I begged to be able to come back because I recognized pretty immediately how important the element of time and change was in connecting with nature. So also my first residency was during May, gorgeous spring blossoming, but absolutely needed to see it at different times of the year to get the full scope of meaning. Yeah, I think that the return is really important, I think. And that seems to be something that is being integrated more, I think, into the programming, and I love that.
When I found out that Kimberly went back a second time, I'm like, hey, I need to come back a second time too. And I put a lot of pressure on Amy for a while. It's like, she never should have told me that. And
I just couldn't leave.
it's like that. It's really, I cried the day that I left. It broke my heart.
Catherine comes to the ground. She says, "Who's in my house this time?"
Yeah, I feel that way too.
Well, and when I come, like, someone from the crew will say, well, are you here, like, for real? Are you just visiting? I'm like, I'm just visiting again. Talk to Amy. But the thing about coming at different times of the year is I felt like I was getting deepening my relationship with Bloedel, which felt just as a human, as an animal, as part of this earthly system, biologically, just felt rich, just felt really rich. And I came in February to March the second time, which also meant the days were shorter. And that was hard for me because I wanted to be outside more during the light. And I didn't expect that. I wasn't thinking ahead about that. So it just sort of changed the way I played with my schedule inside and out. So I had a lot more night times, a lot more coyote singing, stuff like that. But yeah, it was more about that for me, I think, you know, getting to know it differently and just adjusting to the early nighttime.
So when I heard Catherine got to go back a second time, I was like, so Amy, can I come back? And I can. I'm going back in October next month. So I was there in July because I knew from San Francisco that the best time of year in Seattle is the summer. So I requested to come in this summer in 2022. So it'll be good. So who knows? I'll see how it is in October.
It'll be great.
I have something to say about the seasonality of it. It makes my job incredibly hard because on the application it says, when are you available? Everybody puts down May, June, July, and August. We have more slots than that and not more, you know, so I have to really look at the material, at what they are proposing as their community engagement offering, at what we can do at what time of year, at when somebody absolutely cannot attend. So it's really a puzzle to make it work to, as best we can, to be the most advantageous for each artist. And it can't be perfect, but I really spend a lot of time trying to make sure that that will be as optimal as we can make it. So.
Also, a big part of returning is, I'm sure you experience this, but you have all these friends, these trees, and this particular fern, and you come back and that tree is dead, or that fern is like gone, or it's moved, and so it's this wonderful kind of sad but beautifully poetic reckoning with change, and that's a beautiful thing.
I'm still trying to get over the whole ripping out of that one part of the garden and putting in the is it dinosaur? What do you call it? The Jurassic garden. I was like, that was one of my favorite spots. So there's adjustments.
I'll pass that on.
Thank you. It's too late.
My question isn't so much about art as it is about practicality. So you guys are on there 3 or 4 weeks. So is your food brought in? Do you order out? I mean, I just thought that was interesting, because if you're busy doing art, you don't want to be cooking and cleaning up.
That's true, and that different residencies vary in different ways, but there's a full kitchen there, so I know for me, I just did all my grocery shopping up front, never left the entire time I was here.
Yeah.
Did not move my truck. So I just made sure that that was not going to be an interruption for me. What about you guys?
I ate a lot of avocado and crackers and oatmeal. And just like you, I brought a bunch of food, and then I had a few visitors, and I always gave them a shopping list. And I did tell people, if you want to invite me over for dinner, I'm available. So I got a few of those invites too.
That's right. I don't remember. I'll have to plan for what I'm going to eat. I don't remember eating. And it is interesting, because I've been to other residency where there are other artists, and one of the requirements is that you have a meal with the other artists. And so that builds community. So it is, in terms of the residencies internationally, quite special to be by yourself and have to care for yourself. Yeah, I don't remember eating.
Well, it was the pandemic for you, so you didn't have a lot of interaction with many people during that initial visit.
Yeah.
Oh, it was during the pandemic for me too. I was there in 2021. Actually, I was selected for 2020 and got postponed to 2021 because of the pandemic. Yeah, I didn't get a lot of invites. Don't count on it.
Thank you, everyone. Let's give them a round of applause so we can go out to the reception.
Thank you.